Hey everybody, I'm Dan Hepworth. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Massapequa Tutor, and in this short video, I want to talk about how to help you find the best tutor. Um, I've tutored hundreds of hours, I've worked with hundreds of clients, and I've interacted with many families who have other tutors. So I want to give you some key advice that I've learned and come across to help you figure out the best possible tutor for your child. Even if it's not us, I want to help you figure out a good framework to think about what tutor you want to utilize for your child. And there's three main things I want to focus on in this video. The first of which is logistics. There's a lot of things that matter outside of the session. The first of which that comes to mind is price range. Everyone has their different budgets. Some tutors are very, very cheap. When I was a junior in high school, I was charging, I think, $15 an hour. I've also met people who charge upwards of $150 an hour. But one thing to keep in mind is that price is usually equal to more degrees, but not necessarily a higher quality tutor. What you should really look for is someone who can do two things. They can, one, explain the material in a very simple manner, and two, they can explain the material in a very engaging way. And this can often be a very young person, a high school student who just took the class, or a college student. Sometimes it might actually be very paradoxical, where the people with more degrees tend to get too technical and dive into too many specific terms and might not be the best explainer of something. So price range is one big consideration. Another logistical thing post-COVID is going to be location. If you're looking to resume in-person tutoring, you probably want someone who's relatively close to your home or a local library. At an upper bound, probably 15 to 20 miles is probably that sweet spot. You know, with traffic, that could be about 30 minutes of driving. So looking in a 15 to 20 mile radius at maximum. For some, maybe 5 miles if you're in a big city might be more optimal. But location is obviously super important. Another logistical thing is timing and frequency. You want to make sure that your tutor is able to be there when your son or daughter needs it. So think about how many times you plan on utilizing a tutor. For some, it's a weekly routine, just like going out to the gym. So you want someone who can devote 1 hour or 2 hours per week. For other people, it's being on call. Hey, I have an exam tomorrow. I need help with that exam. So being able to get, schedule things very fast. The last logistical thing to think about is this tutor a good communicator? Not just with the student, but with you, because you're an important stakeholder as a parent. You're paying money to this person for them to instruct your child. So they really have an obligation to communicate with you well, give you updates on what happened during the session, respond to your messages fast, be very easy to schedule with. So if you're having difficulties communicating with them, that could be a red flag. So that concludes the logistics. The second thing you want to look at is mastery over the material. Two main questions I would ask here is, one, how well do they know the subject area that you're looking for help in? Oftentimes grades are a good indicator. If they graduated college or are in college, are they studying that thing? Are they really an expert in that thing? The second is, how long have they been tutoring? Have they been doing this for several months, several weeks, several years? Are you their first client? Another thing to look at is how up-to-date they are with the material. Curriculums change constantly, especially with the new Common Core. So making sure that your tutor is up-to-date with the most recent way things are taught, because things are taught different ways. So someone who took algebra 20 years ago knows different ways of solving problems than I do, who took algebra, I guess 5 or 6 years ago. So mastery over the material is super important. The third thing to look at is fit. And this is probably the most difficult one to quantify, but arguably the most important. How does the tutor's personality compare to your child's? Sometimes you want a complementary personality, someone who kind of brings the best out of your son or daughter. If they're very quiet, maybe you want a more extroverted tutor who's going to encourage them to speak up and engage them. But maybe on the contrary, if your child is very talkative, you want a tutor who's able to get to the point and make sure that you have a productive session. Equally important, what is the tutor's teaching or thinking style? We all think of things in different ways. Some people think of things very visually. Some people go to analogies. Some people go to text. Some people are very example-based. Some people are very first principles-based, looking at the rules of something. So seeing how that lines up with the way your child thinks is super important, because there might be a very big disconnect. And oftentimes that's the problem in the classroom. Maybe your teacher teaches something one way, but you learn it a different way. And that's just one of the trade-offs of being in a class where a teacher's teaching anywhere between 30 and 300 people, depending on whether it's a college lecture or a high school class. And the last thing in terms of fit is, will your child trust this tutor? Will they be able to bond and connect over shared interests? This is also super, super important because tutoring requires vulnerability on your son or daughter's behalf. They need to be willing to be comfortable with being wrong and being comfortable with admitting when they don't know something. And oftentimes, if they perceive someone as an authority figure, that might be difficult to do. For example, if your boss asked you, "Do you know this?" you probably want to make a good impression. But tutoring isn't about making a good impression. It's about solving problems and deepening your understanding and developing mastery. So to wrap up, those are 3 of the many factors I would look into in order to find the best tutor: logistics, mastery over the material, and fit. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them either in the comments or you can message me directly. But hope this helps, and best of luck.